Morning, everyone. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Welcome to this morning's meeting. Madam Chair, I'm just going to quickly run through who's with us on the call before we get started. So I confirm we just have quorum now. So all committee members are present with the exception of Jillian Glatt, Kiersey Hunnico, Era McCauley. Councillor Neal is not with us either. He may be joining us in a minute.
He was having some problems with his phone, so with his connection. So
there he is. And staff with us today are Danica Lockheed, Manager, Arts and Sector Development. Elizabeth Fawcett is our meeting host this morning, as well as myself, Julie McCarty-Jansman, Committee Clerk. We also have Felix Lee with us, and we have Kelsey Pearson as our delegation. And there are no members of the public with us. So Madam Chair, if you want to start the meeting, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Elizabeth and Julia. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Great. Thank you, Tim. And a seconder, Annie, I saw. Great. All in favor. Wonderful. And a confirmation of the minutes that everyone
I can't
received.
hear anything.
Oh, I'm not sure who said that. Was that you, Liz?
Yeah.
Can you hear us now, Liz? No. Do we have quorum without Liz, Julia? Or she can nod, I guess.
We do have 8 members currently. We need 7 for quorum. So
okay.
I don't know if she can hear us, if she wants to try maybe.
We could send her an email to phone in maybe so she could hear that way.
Yeah, or she could try to leave and maybe perhaps come back in. I can send her an email right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Julia. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes, to approve the minutes? Great, thank you, Alicia, and a seconder. Liz, can you hear us now? No, I just saw her hand go up. Seconder, Annie, and then all in favor. Wonderful. Do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? No. We will move on to delegations, and we have Kelsey. Welcome, Kelsey, who will make a presentation here, and then we will take any questions and then move on with our meeting. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I didn't realize I would be starting the meeting. So I'm just going to do a really brief presentation about my experience with the Resiliency Grant and just funding in general as a practicing artist. So my name is Kelsey Pearson, as you may know. I'm an emerging multidisciplinary artist. I'm a member of Dead On Collective. If you don't know Dead On, we're down just north of the woolen mill. And I work primarily with print, soft sculpture, performance, kind of a jack of all trades, whatever the project calls for. But I'm also a MFA candidate at Concordia University. I'm also a server by day. I do what I can to make some art. So first off, so I was a recipient of the Resiliency Grant, and I just want to give some background about what the last couple of years have been like with the pandemic as a practicing artist and a bit of the unpredictability there. So at the start of the pandemic, my collective was looking like it was going to close. I was going to lose my studio space, and I was going to lose my community and my co-collaborators because about half of the people at the collective had to leave the studio because they had families and jobs that were at risk with closures, and they were worried that they couldn't pay to continue to be there. So we started planning. We actually started packing our bags and getting ready to go, and then we started selling our art and raising funds in all these different ways. And within a few months, we were able to save ourselves. But again, we knew that this was possible, that this was going to happen again, that we couldn't just be living month to month, like just barely making rent. Along with that, and I was that's when I started working as a server as well. And all of a sudden, with all these closures, I was again losing funds, and then I was worried about making rent at my own apartment, let alone making any art. And then like the art stopped, and a lot of these people romanticize this artist life of the struggle is going to fuel creation, and in fact, it's just the opposite. And and not only just like the struggle with paying my bills, but also losing my community in these ways, because when I feel stifled, I just stop. I stand still. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. And here's some other opportunities, just to give you a background of the type of opportunities that are like, honestly, are unpredictable as well, even outside of a pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, I was scheduled to show in Puerto Rico, Nova Scotia, several states, along with my curatorial debut in Hong Kong. These were all pivotal, and it's hard enough getting the funding to go, but even with that, there are other things that can get in the way, like a pandemic. So all of these were canceled. All these things put strain on and threatened my practice. But it was like, this is not new. This happens within the arts. But when an artist does not have the funds, it's not solely them who suffers. So some things that Dead On contributes, and had we lost Dead On, it would have meant that we wouldn't be able to do our Drink and Draws, which is a community hub for new artists. We get new artists who just move to the city, come there all the time just to meet other people and feel like they're not alone, because working as an artist, you spend a lot of time in solitude. So getting any chance to go see other people is huge. And we do that on our own time. We don't get paid to do these things. We contribute to the cultural fabric of our city. We work on the public with we've been working with the Free Wall and with our own space. I started seeing people walking their dogs down by Dead On and bringing their kids down there to look at some free art, because there's such a strong drive for the individual artist to move out of the gallery setting. So we're moving out into the streets and moving into working with the city, working with schools. I volunteer with art festivals all the time, with schools. I actually, on my own time, will go in and do artist talks for high schools and talk to students about what it would be like to apply to different universities and what different universities are looking for, because I used to be in recruitment at my old university, and none of these things are paid. They're just something that we are putting into the community because we know that it is delicate already and it deserves this time. We teach people to think. We, again, like with Dead On, we were able to have a cultural hub for people to show up. I remember we'd have 20 artists at a time on a good week, coming to these Drink and Draws and meeting each other and giving each other other opportunities. With the window displays that we participated in, we were able to do all these things. Anyway, I'm rambling on just to kind of make a bit of a point that ultimately, this resiliency grant did help me, because once again, I guess we got the resiliency grant in around springtime. And once again, I was out of work because of the most recent shutdown, and I was looking to leave Dead On and move back in with my parents. So I was losing my home space and my studio space. And this is while I was working full time and having a full-time art practice and acting as a working with and volunteering within the community. And that sucks. That is just the reality for artists in this community, when there's so much that's uncalculable that we contribute, and it's not so clear. And it doesn't always have to be that we are making this grander public art piece that is going to have some kind of communal effect. That is, yes, there are creation grants for that, but there are all these little things that add up to one great big thing. And I think about it kind of like farmers markets. I used to work with farmers markets and when I worked for Greater Napanee, and just giving people that place to experience, like meet craftspeople and buy local goods in any way. That was a place that people brought their kids, and it was just a staple for the community. And yes, the Resiliency Grant was great. It covered my studio fees for the summer, and that's it though. That was just like a starting point. This was great. That I'm really grateful that I received it, but I think that there's so much more that we can contribute to the arts for individuals and not necessarily for large organizations, because there's so much going on that we don't necessarily immediately see. Anyway, I rambled a little. I'm sorry that wasn't as concise as I wanted it to be, but yeah. Let me know if you have any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Kelsey, for your advocacy personally and professionally for the arts sector in Kingston. Does anyone have any questions for Kelsey? Tim?
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, that's sadly so frequently the story of artists. But I was wondering how you heard about the grant and how difficult or easy it was to get it. A little bit more about how you finally got the grant and what we could do to make it easier for more artists to get.
Thank you so much. That is definitely something I'd love to talk about. I was fortunate that I was being unfortunate at that moment. I was not working, so I was online. I was able to see it immediately and for the first round, and it was just luck that I saw it in time. And I actually was still in classes at that moment, and I was not paying attention during lecture, and I filled it out right then and there. But honestly, first come, first serve. I understand that that has like the appearance of it being like equal opportunity, but it really isn't, because so many of us artists are working. And if I had been working that day, had I not been online at that moment, then I wouldn't have been able to get it necessarily. And I know a lot of people who with like just accessibility issues, like I know people with disabilities with lack of access to internet who are artists, lack of access to phones who are artists, and they need a bit more time, generally just having a bit more of a gap so that we can all submit with like maybe a month's notice or something like that, or a few weeks notice at least. I think that that's going to provide a better stepping stone for equal opportunity.
Great, thank you. I have a question. Kelsey, were there other artists that were part of the Dead On Collective that also received funds? No, I was just curious. So it paid for your studio, which is great for the summer. Now, when you say summer, you mean a couple months or like the 4?
It paid for 5 months actually.
5 months. Okay.
My studio fees, because I share a space, is only $200 a month, which is very affordable. So that would cover a standard studio.
Okay.
And I believe I'm the only one, but the other members paid just out of pocket. I don't know if Eric Williams was a recipient.
I was just curious about the collective itself, because I know that I was listened to another talk about Dead On, and I was just wondering, because I know they're affordable, but yet that's only one part of your expenses and your costs. So I just wondered that. Does anyone else have any questions? Dean?
Hi, Kelsey, thanks so much for coming in and talk to us for sure. Great to hear that we had a little impact anyways with that. Were there any other pots of money, any other grants that you were able to access through this period that served a similar kind of goal, or?
Not specifically through the city. I know that our collective applied for the ADAPT grant. So that was one that our collective was eligible for, but through total remodeling, actually. And but as an individual, no, I'm eligible for Nan Yelman's, which is $2,500, is it? but that goes to one person, as you know. And ultimately, a lot of my funding comes through individual projects. I do a lot of commissions. I'm eligible for some Ontario grants, but a lot of the time, right now, I'm in a 3-year master's program, and during this time, I'm actually less eligible for funding. Like, a lot of entities will not fund students, but I still have bills to pay. I have more bills to pay. And I'm still contributing, and I'm still making art that isn't specifically for my thesis. But that weird gray area scares away a lot of funding provincially and federally and elsewhere, unfortunately. And so I've been going on, this is my 3rd year. I'm in my thesis year of being less eligible for funding. And that unfortunately is the reality of also being a young artist, because there are a lot of things that get in the way. So I understand that there needs to be a filtration system, but sometimes some of these little bureaucratic things that parts that come into funding really inhibit eligibility of people who are actual practicing artists still.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have a question for Kelsey? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Kelsey. Oh, who? Oh, Councillor Neal, sorry, I didn't see that against your painting there, sorry.
No problem, that was a late hand, I apologize. My ex-wife is a musician, and I know she spent countless hours applying for grants through the province and locally, and I'm just wondering how many hours would you estimate that you've had to put into grant applications when you would be far better off doing art? So
Actually, yes, that is a really great question. Thank you so much for that too. I've actually taken classes on grant writing at my university, and unfortunately, it is a full-time job. If you want to get grants, it is a full-time job on top of your full-time job, on top of your part-time job. That's kind of the catch-22 of being an artist. If you are working in your studio too much, you are neglecting your granting opportunities. And if you are working on granting opportunities, you are not protecting your studio practice, and you're not actually making any art. And then what are you? Statistically, you are lucky if you get 1 out of every 15 grants that you apply for. And that's not an exaggeration. That's actually like a really good number. If you're doing that, then you are possibly like going to be able to be sustainable through granting funding, because but that's not the reality for a lot of artists. So you're putting in countless hours. I set aside a few hours a day every single day just looking for opportunities and working on opportunities, and a lot of that yields zero, it yields zero results 90% of the time. And yeah, it is unfortunate. So I can't calculate a number. And honestly, a lot of the times I will not apply for an opportunity if the funding isn't enough, because it's not worth my time. So that's another way that opportunities go missed.
Yeah, I think Annie has a question.
Yeah, less of a question and more to just speak to what Kelsey's saying and to emphasize that I was an artist and now I'm a lawyer, and I actually find it easier to be a lawyer and earn money that way to fund my arts practice than I did to write grants. Just to provide, obviously this is a slightly extreme example, but it's the exhaustion of writing grants is unbelievable. And also the innate privilege, you have to be crazy literate. Your language skills have to be amazing. Your organizational skills have to be amazing. And like props to you, Kelsey, for having all those skills. But the inaccessibility of the granting system to people who struggle with literacy or struggle with computers, like the Kingston Arts Council, I want to give a big shout out to CCAF. I think everyone is doing a really good job to try to make it as accessible as possible. But again, I'll echo what Kelsey said about how are ways that CCAF could explore making sure CCAF grants get to people who struggle with literacy and who struggle with computer skills. And even then, I guess I just want everyone to be aware that, for me, who's a lawyer, or Dean, who has an academic position, suddenly our lives are so much easier because our monthly bills are just no longer an issue. Dean, I don't actually know that much about your ongoing finances, but I'm just going to kind of assume.
And listen, Kelsey's story about the stress and strain of it. I've been here for 3 years now, right? And also when you were talking about going back to school as well. I went back to get my doctorate after 17 years of a professional career, right? So there's often the assumption when you hear someone's a student, it means they haven't emerged yet as an artist, and that more and more is changing, right? Because a lot of people later in their lives are going back to school to or going to other opportunities to help support their art, right? To find some security in your life. Because I also agree, there's that romanticism about, living, starving artist kind of thing, whatever. I write much better when I've got a good meal in my belly, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. And to just push on that point, Dean, I think my husband and I are both artists. We couldn't have started a family unless I had another source of income.
Yes.
And starting a family is a pretty basic human right. So props to you, Kelsey, for your hard work. Your art's terrific, by the way. I just sent you an email. I want to buy one of your rugs.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We've got a question from Mark, actually.
Hey, Kelsey. I live right in your wheelhouse there, where the Dead On Collective is. So I know you guys, just through actually hearing it, I know you guys have a pretty cool skate park back there in that building. It's within the same building, right?
Yes, it's actually, it's not a full park. It's like a mini ramp. Just short.
I have friends that were actually thinking of, they said that there's no great place for skaters downtown Kingston. And they were actually, it's the folks that opened the BSC skate shop downtown. And of course, it's just a retail and coffee shop. It doesn't have a skate ramp in there. But I chatted with them a lot, and they expressed that there was such a need for that downtown. I just wonder, I know this is kind of not what we were talking about previously, but if just something to keep in mind specifically for the Dead On Collective would be to try to access any financing for that space for the skate component of it. And then, the artists that are working in there are maybe sort of subsidized through a different avenue. And I don't know if that would kind of be through recreation funding or something completely different from the arts, but just to, I guess, maybe an outside the box idea for how we can sometimes fund these things that maybe don't always directly just come from arts funding. There might be other avenues.
So, no, that's actually something we've talked about, and I do believe that is incorporated into our application for the ADAPT grant. And
Cool.
we built that because we're all I'm with Kingston Roller Derby. I'm on the board of directors with Kingston Roller Derby. I am part of Community and Bowls, which brings roller skaters to skate parks, and so I hit the mini ramp. Eric is a longtime skater, and so are all of our members. We have been using that as part of the drink drop. The one issue with that, and we're trying to figure that out, is insurance is a really big hindrance to open that up to the public in the same way. We have been doing it as a more casual thing for this because we are integrated into the skate community. Someone asked to come do it, we can go hang and actually use it. But indoor recreation as well, and just usable beginner ramps. There just isn't anything like that. Pulse in the mini ramp is way too high for a beginner. I have a lot of friends with a lot of breaks that have happened. Anyway, that's a little off track. But the big thing with that is insurance.
Right. Okay.
That will suck a lot of the funds out of it.
And
it's really hard to, we'd have to partner up with someone or something. Anyway.
I think some things like recreation and things like the derby scene and the skateboarding scene and art, there's a place for them to sort of meet, I think, and maybe share resources and spaces. Maybe it's not the exact space you're in right now, but it just had me thinking.
All of those activities, although they are athletics, they are physical creativity. honestly, it is an extension of the arts. It's an extension of performance. It goes hand in hand. And
Very
and
great.
also both those communities are very self-reliant because there isn't a lot of support for them.
For sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. You've given us a lot to think about, and I thank you so much for bringing this all to our attention and telling us how it was and what it meant to you, that funding. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I don't believe we have briefings, but we do have a couple items under business. And the first one will be led by Felix, and he'll discuss the Arts Fund consultation for 2022. And welcome, Felix.
Hi, thanks so much, Nadine. For those of you who haven't seen or met me at one of these briefings before, it's been a long while, actually a calendar year almost, since I've been to an AAC meeting. My name is Felix Lee, and until September 2021, I was the grants coordinator for the Kingston Arts Council. As of last week, I'm currently acting as the interim executive director. So that's who I am and what I do. And as many of you already know, the City of Kingston Arts Fund has invested $6.9 million through operating and project grants to local arts organizations and collectives since its creation in 2007. CCAF aims to foster cultural vitality, increase the capacity of the arts community to create and produce artistic work, engage residents, enhance our city's cultural economy, and support financial stability and sustainability. Every year, the Kingston Arts Council, the KAC, completes an annual review of this program, which means that we collect feedback from applicants, recipients, jurors, and community members. This feedback, along with our experience as the administrators, helps us develop the Kingston Arts Council Plan for Administration of Arts Funding for the Corporation of the City of Kingston, which we will abbreviate to the Plan for Admin. That guiding document is the foundation for the program. It governs things like roles and responsibility, eligibility, assessment, and adjudication process, and it can be read in full and is always publicly available on our website. This year, the draft 2022 Plan for Admin is currently in process. It will be presented to and approved by the KAC board in October, the AAC, so we'll return to you with the draft in November, and then the Arts Recreation Community Policy Committee, and then Kingston City Council. And that's in preparation for the launch in winter, spring 2022 of CCAF. The continued impact of COVID-19 on the arts sector and the Kingston community presents unique challenges and opportunities as we prepare for CCAF 2022. So in summary, to briefly recap where we've been since I last presented to you, in 2020, the KAC worked with grant recipients to accommodate lockdowns and delays, and we successfully delivered arts programming in Kingston. We conducted an expanded community-engaged consultation process that informed the 2021 Plan for Admin for this year's CCAF cycle. And this year, operating and project grants distributed $583,052 to 11 nonprofit arts organizations and 15 projects. This feedback also helped us develop 2 new grant programs within this year, one of whom we just heard about through that amazing delegation presentation, and that's Resiliency, and the other one was called Adapt. Those were made possible by $200,000 in one-time additional funding from the City of Kingston, which was to address the impacts of COVID-19 directly. Resiliency distributed in total 100 grants of $1,000 each to 100 individual artists in Kingston. And that money was intended to help them continue to work and to work safely. Adapt provided $100,000 in total to 15 projects, which were put forward by individual artists, artist collectives, and arts nonprofit organizations to address pandemic-related challenges through new ways of working. And we actually are very excited to announce the Adapt recipients yesterday. They are currently available on our website to read with descriptions of those projects. As the administrators of CCAF, the KAC work to ensure that the funding program nurtures the arts community and is evolving in response to changing needs. We are so grateful for the support of the City of Kingston during this year, And we are very proud of the growth of this program during these challenging times. And we're so excited to see the resiliency and creativity of our arts community in response to the pandemic. We are currently consulting applicants, recipients, jurors, and of course, the Arts Advisory Committee for feedback and preparation for 2022. So I'm here today to seek your feedback as representatives of the arts community as we work to ensure the safety and the support of artists and organizations. We have already identified some priorities for 2022, which I'll highlight briefly, and that is a continuation of the Resiliency Grant stream. So as we heard from the delegation, resiliency made a huge impact in 2021. It was developed and rolled out between February and May of this year, so quite quickly. And we're looking to continue that impact in a longer term as our community recovers in 2022. We believe that funding is still really important. We'll also be making language clarifications to definitions in project grants and eligible costs to better reflect our current practices and to help the applicants. And we are also considering the potential for individual applicants to project grants. Individual artists were eligible to apply to the 2021 ADAPT stream, which was structured similarly to project, but as I said, was intended to respond to the pandemic directly. In addition to these ideas that will go into the plan for admin, we're also looking at improving the application process itself. This is something that we do every year to improve accessibility in line with best practices of other comparable funding programs. So that includes streamlining and shortening the application process, improving the legibility and accessibility of the document itself, and creating stronger alignment between the assessment criteria which grant applicants are provided and the form that they actually have to fill out. So I would now, with that background information, like to open the conversation. We just heard a lot of really great feedback from an artist in the community, which I think helps set the tone for this, to discuss the continuing impact of the pandemic on artists and organizations, the challenges that you perceive the community facing in 2022, and the ways in which we can continue to grow the CCAF program to support the city's recovery in the arts and culture sector.
Great, thank you so much, Felix. You would like some feedback. Do you want questions? Are there any questions for him and the program? Alicia?
I just have one small question. The hope to be able to continue with the Resiliency Grant, Felix, will that be reliant on, or do you know, further one-time only funding from the city? Or will this require advocacy for continued annual funding that would allow for that extra 100,000 or perhaps even more to accommodate all those applications that you've received?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that is something that Danica would like to provide feedback on as an answer as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of jump in on this. Alicia, it's a great question. I mean, in this moment, the work that the Arts Council is doing in relation to the CCAF program is continuing with the operating and project grant program, which is, annually approved, and the funding is annually approved through the Arts and Culture Services operating budget. In our early discussions around this, we have assumed that it would be a request for additional one-time funding, given we are still in the midst of a pandemic and the impact on artists in 2021 will remain in 2022. I think the larger city-led review that is due imminently in terms of looking at the program since it first was established in 2007, add a pandemic to the midst, and figure out a way forward for CCAF to, as Felix has said, effectively service the arts community, could see individual artist funding integrated in a more permanent way.
Great. Liz?
Thank you. So just to clarify, one of the changes that's proposed is that individuals will be eligible for project grants this year coming up?
So we are considering what it would look like for individual
Oh.
artist applicants to be eligible at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not, I wouldn't call it a proposed change in this moment. But if you have a comment on what that would look like for the program, we would be interested to hear that feedback now.
Well, my thought was, of course, it gets how you decide on the individual's merits when you've normally been able to give project grants to groups that have an established either not-for-profit or a charitable status, or the various ways that a group proves that they are a legitimate organization. I mean, I'm in favor of it if you can work out a criteria that makes sense. Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you.
I see Dan, sorry, I don't want to take your job, Nadine, but I see Danica has a raised hand.
Oh, you're muted, Danica.
Sorry. Felix, you would obviously have an answer for this too. I think I just wanted to offer to the first point and the first part of the question, Liz, I think, the rationale behind including individuals in the project grant program is based on the success of the ADAPT grant program and our ability to, the Arts Council's ability to, successfully develop the criteria that, similar to how the Arts Council assesses artist collectives through the current project stream, is able to be transferred over to sort of recognize that individual artists have great capacity to deliver innovative and impactful arts projects in Kingston. So again, through this pandemic and these new granting programs, we've been able to learn a lot about the funding programs in areas that we may thought we could not have gone in the past. I feel very confident that we can going forward. So,
Dean?
Hi there, Felix. You mentioned that we had we funded 1,000 or 100 artists for the resiliency program. I was just curious how many applications we actually received.
That is a great question. I do not have the exact number in front of me of unique applications because many people applied twice. There were approximately 160 applicants in each round. We ran 2 deadlines, but there was quite an overlap of the same people applying again who were unsuccessful in round 1, applying in round 2. So it is less than the total of those 2 added together.
Right. It's just, yeah, so it would be good to know how much we are serving the needs in a sense, like if there was a lot of people that weren't able to get grants that we would like to. Thank you.
Councillor Neal?
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but I'm a little curious about how you define not-for-profit. The reason I'm asking is I have a lot of artist friends, and with the exception of Sarah Harmer and the Tragically Hip, I don't know anybody that in my mind wouldn't qualify as not-for-profit. I mean, that's the nature, the unfortunate nature of arts workers. So how do you go about defining something as not-for-profit?
So I guess 2-part answer would be that currently the language not-for-profit that is in the plan for admin, the guidelines, the program refers to incorporated nonprofits. So we're referring specifically to groups that have a legal incorporation and a special tax status. We also would consider only projects that are not-for-profit. So for this purpose, we would look at their budgets, which they have to provide in the application, and they cannot retain funds through the project. So expenditures have to match the revenue that they've brought in, which is typical for arts funding in this style or this type of granting in municipal funding. That's how we would talk about nonprofit in terms of is the collective acting that way. Obviously, I think maybe you're alluding to There is a bit of a gray area in terms of some artists choose to incorporate as a business, and they do that for tax reasons, for income reasons. And that's sort of, I think, a separate conversation once we start talking about individual artists and their eligibility. Obviously, we wouldn't be looking at incorporated businesses applying to receive funding through this. There is a statement in eligible costs that grants cannot advantage a for-profit partner. So that would be, if I'm hearing your question correctly, Councillor Neal.
That addresses my concern. And until we have a guaranteed annual income, I guess it's always going to be a tough call as to where the grants go.
It's tough. Danica?
Did it again. Just a couple comments just to Councillor Neal. One of the things, as Felix has mentioned, around artists that incorporate as businesses, one of the things that we are trying to support in relation to those specific people is through our creative industry strategy, which was approved by council earlier this year, and the one-time funding through Kingston Economic Development Corporation, which would have been available to those artists who have incorporated as creative businesses, is the route direction that we've sort of put them. So I just wanted to add that one sort of bit of context for those creative businesses in Kingston. And I also just wanted to follow up on Dean's question around number of applicants and total funding requests. I think it's a critical point to share. And this is so this was information that the Arts Council collected. But through the program, the Resiliency Grant program, the Arts Council received 263 unique applications with a request amount of $300,096, which is nearly 4 times the $100,000 that was invested for this program. So there is very clearly through this project a demonstrated need in the Kingston artist community for this type of funding.
Great, thank you, Danica. Dean?
Could I just ask again about the description you were talking about not-for-profit? That's a very specific term, which, I mean, if you're talking about a business or incorporated business, you have a for-profit or a not-for-profit, an organization with charitable number and all that kind of thing. But the term as applied to, are you also looking for not-for-profit projects? Because that's a little bit more of a nebulous term. Like a not-for-profit company doing a project is doing a not-for-profit project, but an individual is, again, and most artists are not incorporated in that sense. So is there some, like I say, is there some cutoff? Because the other thing about not-for-profit, it doesn't mean that no one's getting paid.
That's right.
It just, so I'm just curious how the definition not-for-profit is being used in terms of a project application.
So it is being used in terms that currently the way that CCAF is structured right now, we have 2 eligible groups for project funding. One is an incorporated nonprofit or registered charity, which is a legally incorporated entity that's audited and has a special tax status. So they would have a number through the government. And we also accept applications from collectives. Collectives, in our definition, have to have at least 3 members. Those 3 members have to each be a signing authority. They can't have more than 3, but they have to have 3 signing authority members. They must have a bank account in their own name. And they have to act collectively for the project. So we're really not applying that not-for-profit language except to refer to legally incorporated groups, which are an eligible category in the application. That's how it's talked about. I think that we would have I was seeking to sort of maybe parse out some nuance in Councillor Neal's question around maybe applying this to individuals. But as it stands right now, the language that refers to not-for-profit in the plan for admin, in the guidelines, it refers to legally incorporated entities.
Thanks, that clarifies that.
Right. I had a comment more, just going back to what Annie was talking about with literacy and language and accessibility, for people during with Wi-Fi issues or just good computer equipment issues, or the clear knowledge how to use that process of an online application. And I thought it was interesting. It was obviously sparked by COVID, but there was a group out east, and my son applied for a job, and it was using video. This group in Halifax for a funding opportunity was accepting video submissions. And I thought that was really interesting because for artists, many times it can be incorrectly perceived that they're not, professional or have an impactful idea for the community because they don't have the language or can't get across their idea in a different way, right? Everyone has different styles. So anyways, I thought that was really interesting, and for the future, maybe of, different funding opportunities with this particularly. Does anyone have any other questions about this business item A? Yes, Liz?
Thank you. I know that insurance has been a problem over the years, and I wondered if it still is, or if there's been headway made, particularly for small groups who find the cost. I realize that the funding can be used to pay for the insurance, but is it still a block for a lot of groups?
So this is actually a change we made in 2021 that we are going to continue in 2022. To address this issue, it used to be the case up until 2020 that we required everyone to submit a certificate of insurance showing that they had purchased $5 million liability insurance, saving harmless both the City of Kingston and the Kingston Arts Council. This obviously, as we talked about during the consultation last year, and I believe came up quite frequently in both the AAC meetings and the roundtables. This is an issue for small collectives because it presented an upfront or an overhead cost that they had to cover out of pocket and then reimburse with the CCAF funding. So the change that we made in cooperation with the city, which is the source for that requirement, is that we now allow them to submit a quote for insurance to release the funds. So they provide a quote to us showing that they have contacted an insurance broker and that they have an acceptable policy lined up, and then we release the funds to them with their signed agreement. They then file the certificate with us demonstrating that they have successfully paid and covered that cost with CCAF. So that was the solution that we reached in 2021 and was implemented for this year and has gone through successfully in terms of people collecting their funding for 2021. So we are looking to continue that to remove that upfront cost barrier because you are correct that we do allow them to input that as an expense in their CCAF budget. And we do encourage them to use the funds to cover the cost.
Thank you. And that's also been for the Resiliency and the ADAPT program. There's obviously been a different criteria around the insurance.
So Resiliency does not require insurance. The Resiliency program, the application is 4 questions long. It's quite short. It's done completely online in browser. You don't have to download anything. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on a tablet. That was the way that we set it up to make it more accessible. And there was no project proposal through that. It was done through demonstration of need. So it wasn't adjudicated by a jury. We will be looking to continue that process. We won't be adjudicating them or asking for project proposals because we view that as relief funding. We are looking at implementing new measures to address some of the challenges that the delegation brought up, which is feedback that we have received from recipients and applicants as well around the first come, first serve model. So we are looking at ways to make that more accessible, more equitable in the future, but we are not going to ask for any requirement or proof of insurance to receive that funding. It's not required for Resiliency. ADAPT is structured the same as project. So it's either a quote for or the certificate for insurance coverage to release the funding.
Great, thank you. Alicia.
In the very helpful letter that your board of directors submitted as part of our package, today, Felix, it's mentioned that there will be another expanded, or there is currently an expanded consultation with community, of which this meeting is a part. And I'm wondering, my apologies if I missed it, but how long is that going for? And is there any difference between this expanded consultation with the one that happened last year? And if there is opportunity for the 163 applicants who did not receive a resiliency grant last year, if they can, if there's any reach out to them to have opportunity to comment.
Yes, so we are doing what would be considered an expanded consultation from previous iterations of the annual review. It is smaller than the one we did in 2020. So 2020 involved quite a large public-facing survey. There were roundtables. There were several levels of group discussion that happened earlier in the year. And we felt that was necessary because of the really extreme and sudden change in circumstances in 2020. This year, we are seeking feedback sooner from jurors, recipients, applicants, and we're also coming to the AAC for this preliminary consultation, which up until 2019 was not common practice. So we've added levels to the consultation for this year, but it's smaller than 2020. Part of that is seeking feedback from resiliency. So we do ask for impact statements from recipients, and those are timed to align with this consultation as well. So recipients are required to do that, and we do receive those. We also have taken a number of both emails and arranged a number of one-on-one meetings, either by Zoom or by phone, throughout the summer with people who applied to the resiliency program. So we have quite a bit of feedback from applicants through the process. We were interested in engaging in that outside of the annual review because it was a brand new program. So we were really eager to hear from applicants who both did and did not receive funding on the process, the application form, the timing. Those were things that we have consulted with them about, and there's quite a bit to be summarized for this already, yeah.
Great. And anyone with other feedback or questions can contact you directly, right, Felix?
Yes. Anyone at any time can email me directly at grants@artskingston.ca. That is my email address, and it is the best way to contact me for anything that has to do with CCAF. And we are always eager to hear from people in the community as well as our applicant and recipient group. Part of our programming around this has always been to engage new applicants. So every year, the KAC does run public information sessions. This year, we ran them for our new programs as well as operating in project. We also provide one-on-one support. During the pandemic, that's been done by phone, by Zoom, or by email, primarily, not in person. But we are always available to schedule one-on-one meetings with people who are even interested in the program and are not sure whether they're eligible to apply, as well as providing one-on-one support for actually writing the application and submitting it. So
amazing. Well, thank you so much, and bravo to your interim posting.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we will move on to Danica, who has a I guess you're going to be wrapping up a working group, right?
Thanks, Nadine. Thank you, Felix. That was great. So this item on the agenda, I just have two additional people to present to this committee for the Art and Public Places Working Group. We have already gone through the initial approval process of those working group members. But we have secured our sort of final two for this working group. And so I'm looking for the Arts Advisory Committee's approval today. The individuals being put forward, their names are Victor Oriuchia. Victor is a Kingston-based stone sculptor practicing for over 20 years, and he would like to be a part of this working group as an artist representative. And the second individual is John Geronimus. And thank you to Mark, who made the connection with John, who is a principal architect at Raw Design. Raw Design is Toronto-based, but they are setting up a satellite office here in Kingston. And they are responsible for developing multi-use residential spaces, adaptive reuse of heritage structures, and institutional commercial developments. John has expressed his interest in being part of this working group and would sort of support us in terms of the developer position as part of this working group. So those are the two names I'd like to put forward for approval.
Before we make a motion, I guess, are there any questions or comments, or can we move that working group forward? Right. Okay. So then I will make a motion that this is the accepted group for the Art in Public Places working group. Can I get a second? Great, Liz, and all in favor? Great. There we go. Thank you. There are no other motions and notices of motion. I have other business that I ran by Julia. If I could just make an announcement, if you haven't seen it, I am leaving the TET Center for Creativity and Learning at the beginning of October. I've been involved for a very long time in the project, but I'm moving on and going to have a nap. No, I'm going to pursue what brought me to the TET project in the first place, which is my artistic side of things. So it's been really great working with everybody here. And I guess at the next meeting, there will be a movement to get a new chair. And I just want to say thank you. And I'll see, I'm not going anywhere. I'm in Kingston, so I'll see everyone around. And I don't believe we have any correspondence from anyone. And the next meeting is in fact November 10th at 11 a.m. And Danica, you have a hand up. Yes.
I just wanted to sort of, add to your announcement and just officially thank you for years of service at the TET Center for Creativity and Learning. You've seen through so much. And you're leaving it in incredible shape. And it's been amazing to sort of witness this. This is, the development of this incredibly important arts hub. So I just want to thank you for your work. Thank you for your time with us at the Arts Advisory Committee as chair, for your work on all of our working groups. You've been a part of so much. And so you've made a real impact, and just a big thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will see everyone around. I'm not going anywhere. I might come on and do a delegation sometime. Who knows?
That's right.
Yeah. Anyhow, so can I get a motion to adjourn? Great. Councillor Neal, thank you. Seconded by Tim, and all in favor. Is there anything I'm missing, Julia? We're all in good? Okay. So I guess we'll see everyone later. Bye, everybody.
Buddy.
Buddy.
Bye-bye.